The idea of the project is to explore the idea of Commonwealth Constitutionalism, whether these countries that belong to the Commonwealth have a shared constitutional heritage, and what we can do by looking more closely at the similarities and the divergences in the constitutional practices of these countries, and how that can help us understand and help countries along their trajectories of constitutional development. A very important dimension of the network and the project is bringing together, in looking at Commonwealth constitutionalism, to bring together scholars from the three disciplines of law, politics and history.
And this is a new initiative at Edinburgh to discuss the common reservoir of ideas about constitutions and the politics and laws that surround them from the many cases that we find in the Commonwealth, where there's over 50 countries and over 2.5 billion people. And this is a field of research and study that hasn't been done for a long time, despite the richness of the material that comes from these various states, that despite being very different, have a common heritage being linked with Britain.
And today we have a really excellent mix of lawyers, historians and political scientists, all with very, very specific forms of expertise looking at different Commonwealth countries. And what I want to take away from this is both maybe some idea of just how loosely or tightly connected the Commonwealth is today in terms of its history, in terms of its institutional structures, but also a few normative sketches. What is it that the Commonwealth has in common? What lessons can we learn from each other? Perhaps none, perhaps quite a lot.
So I came to this symposium to speak about the constitutional role of the head of state, which I'm looking at in relation to the Caribbean, but what I've taken away from this symposium has been a lot of excellent feedback from different disciplines of law and history and politics and international relations relating to comparative constitutionalism in relation to cases of, be it India, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, South Africa, Ireland and so forth, and how these issues, which I have studied in relation to my particular area of regional expertise, play out across the Commonwealth in very many interesting comparative ways.
I found it very interesting the way in which the various speakers spoke about constitutional sovereignty and this concept of how sovereignty has radiated out from the UK and its empire. And my observations were that through the decolonization process, they have transposed this idea of parliamentary sovereignty and a Westminster model of parliament. It's been adopted by all of these former colonies. However, they adopt the parts of the parliamentary model and invoke the term sovereignty as and when it becomes convenient. I think that's increasingly important in today's world, because all of these now states are players on the international scene, and they tend to invoke these very British concepts of sovereignty and parliamentary sovereignty when it's convenient for them to basically issue various ideas of international governance. And so I think today's discussions are really important for us to really sit and think about what do we mean by sovereignty and what does it mean for the grander international community.
So we've heard contributions from law, history, political science, but also branching into other areas like anthropology. And what's interesting is that we are all talking about similar things. We might use different language, we might have different terms for things, but we're basically looking at how power is structured, how power is controlled through constitutions across the Commonwealth. And what we're seeing is a two-way mirror. The UK has informed how constitutions have developed in the Commonwealth, but also it's reflected back in the way that those constitutional values, principles, rules have been assimilated at the Commonwealth level, and then they're feeding back to how we understand constitutionalism in the UK. There's been a really fruitful discussion of that two-way process.
The different perspectives have given purchase to sort of the nuances and complexities of trying to define Commonwealth, of trying to define constitutionalism, and then of course of trying to figure out what to do with a new term or a new conception of constitutionalism. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what will come out of subsequent meetings of the Keith Forum and feel very fortunate to have been included.
So I have very high hopes that we have started something that looks to have a very promising future.